Hi guys, what is going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So today I really wanted to dig into the crafting system a little bit, both looking at hero equipment, weapons and armor, and also unit equipment crafting, because it's something that's not really covered very well in the tutorial, I don't think. I'm not going to go into resource gathering in the open world because I've kind of got a separate video on that. You can go and check out my open world video if you want to know a little bit about resource gathering. So we're just going to be talking more about the crafting side of things and how it works. So we're going to start with hero equipment. So as I'm sure you're aware, if you go into your hero, obviously you have your equipment. So your sword, because I'm playing as a longsword, it could also be a glaive, a musket, a longbow, whatever piece of equipment you're using. And then your armor, light, medium or heavy. A longsword uses heavy armor, so that's the armor I'm currently using. And all this is crafted armor. So I've crafted all this myself, and you get certain benefits from that. Both allows you to craft higher tier armor than you are able to buy from the shop, so it's better. And you also, because you get a chance of getting rarer armor. So, for example, this breastplate here got a plus 19 to piercing defense because I crafted it myself. So you get some benefits from doing that, and it allows you to get armor that isn't otherwise available, apart from maybe on the market. So to craft hero equipment, you need hero resources. I keep all mine here down at the bottom of the inventory, split between bound and unbound. And you can see you've got iron, copper. I'm not sure how this represents copper. It never looks much like copper to me, but sidetrack. Cloth, leather, wood, etc, etc, and you get them all down here. So to actually craft, we then head over to the smith, and you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So you have all the hero weapons, and you can sort by class if you want to. See all the long swords. I'm currently using a captain sword, so I needed 65 wood, 25 scrap iron and 40 copper. It's quite a lot. You need quite a lot of resources to craft, and these aren't that easy to get, but we'll cover that in a second. And you can craft the first two easily without any schematics, but as you get further down you'll notice you need these schematics to be able to produce them. Particularly some of the Archangel requires one of these Imperial Knight schematic, which are really hard to get hold of. There's no easy way of getting hold of these. Occasionally they come up for sale on the market, but they're pretty rare and they go pretty quickly because everyone's after them. So your best bet is just a random loot drop. You can get these random drops not often, but occasionally in the open world. If you search through like derelict houses, abandoned carts and stuff, you will sometimes come across them there. It's probably the best chance of finding them. You can sometimes get them as random drops from other things, though, like battles, expeditions. So it's worthwhile just keeping an eye out for them, and if you get them, personally I'm planning on holding on to them. You can sell them, but they don't really sell for that much on the market, so it's not really worth it for me, so I'll just hang on to them. But moving on to actually getting hold of these resources, because as you can see it's pretty hard to get hold of, and some of them are pretty rare, things like these steel ingots. So where do you get resources from? So there are a handful of ways. Firstly, you can find them, as I said, in the open world, in those carts, in those abandoned carts. You can't gather them like you can gather resources for unit crafting. You cannot gather resources for hero crafting. So yes, open world in that sense. You can also get them from doing expeditions. If you do these expeditions over here, you sometimes get a couple of resources at the end of each expedition. You can also get them from bandit camps and for fighting bandit raiding parties, but they're not particularly, large amounts from doing these, considering the amount of time it takes to do expeditions, so it's not a particularly efficient way of doing it. And the other way is through doing salvaging equipment. So if we head over just quickly to my inventory, if you notice, sometimes at the end of a battle you'll get a random piece of equipment. In this case I've got an iron Spitfire. It's not actually bound, so I could sell this on the market, but I actually want its materials. I want to break this item down and get its iron, its wood, etc. And get enough materials to actually form it into a weapon, into what I want it to be. So if we head back over to the smith and go to this item here called Salvage Item Materials, and right click on our piece we want to get rid of, you can see it's going to cost me 200 bronze to do that. And I just click salvage. You should want to break this equipment down. A little bit of time, and we'll see what we got. So we got 11 scrap iron and 14 scrap copper. For me, this has just dropped into my various slots in my inventory, which is why I keep everything neatly down here between split and band and unbound, so I kind of know exactly what I've got. And it's proportional to the quality of the equipment. So that's quite a lot of resources from that. But say another way, if you don't have any equipment to salvage, is you could buy some crap equipment from the armourer. So let's have a look at that. Say if we just buy, I don't know, a new book circlet. Let's buy that. Yep, with bronze coins and it'll bind. And let's head back over here. So this is another way you could get equipment. So let's just go. We paid 600 bronze for that, 100 to salvage it, so 700 total. And what do we get? See, we got a lot less there. Because it was a very low quality and low level piece of equipment, we only got 1 leather, 2 cloth and a piece of copper. So it's a much more long-winded way to do it like that, but sometimes that's your only choice. If you don't have any other sort of decent equipment that you can salvage to get the resources you want, then that is a way you can do it if you have bronze coins to spare. The other option, of course, is to go to the market. So you can go down hero materials. There's not that much for sale, to be honest, and I've kind of just brought up what was left. But you can search through and look for things for sale once you get past all the vault keys. Is there anything of interest? Pots of cloth, scrap iron, not for sale. There's a piece of leather there for sale for 75. That's not too expensive. That's a pretty decent price. I would probably buy that. And there's a little bit of wood. So you can get a few being things. When it says pending, it's not yet for sale. It has to tick down to 0 time left, and then it will go for sale. Some well-worn wood. Oh, I might have that. Let's head over to the auctioneer, because the piece of item that I'm planning on crafting is going to require some well-worn wood, and I haven't quite got enough. So if we head over to the auctioneer, you have to go to the auctioneer to buy and sell at the market, unfortunately. So let's try and find that piece of well-worn wood again. Where was it? Here, so it's now for sale. So let's purchase those 2 for 450 each. You can only use silver at the market. There we go. So we just brought them. And we should now find them in our inventory, which we do over here. Nice. I'm just going to drop them onto my existing pile of well-worn wood, so I now have 5. Kind of gives you an idea how it works. And I have a schematic, a rare leg guard schematic. So let's head back over to the armour and let's see how this works for the crafting. I think we're going to be slightly short on resources, so we'll have to have a temporary interim, but helps if I go to the right one because it's a saddlery item. And we can see folded leg guards, what they want to produce, which is actually quite a lot superior to my existing leg guards on my horse. And you can see I have all the required resources except the well-worn wood, so I'm 5 short on that part. But I actually have the schematics, so you'd see I would be able to craft that. In the meantime, let's perhaps just craft something a little bit crap, but in which could still be useful. I'm having a look at the poleaxe shortly, so maybe we could make ourselves a nice poleaxe. So you can see this is the best one I can do without a schematic, is the frost axe, and I've got a choice of 2 levels of rarity. You can see I'm guaranteed a green, because it's crafting, and you can see the equipment that you get on that, and it will get a +1 bonus attribute. So you can see on my sword on the left there, you can see on slashing damage it's +45, that was my bonus attribute. But if we come over here, if we're lucky and we get a blue frost axe, which is a purely random and chance-based system, you can see not only are its base stats higher than the previous one, so like piercing armor damage is 1238, it's 1250 on the rarer one. You also get number of bonus attributes 2, so you've got a high chance of getting some better equipment. And other than that, it costs us 1,000 and uses up the resources we see here. So let's start crafting on that. It takes a couple of seconds for that to do. And, oh, we did! We got lucky and we got a blue one. And you can see what bonus attributes we both got there. So we've got blunt damage plus 136 and blunt armor penetration plus 75. Nice! So you can see that we got some pretty decent piece of equipment there. So I'm certainly going to be hanging on to that. So, in a nutshell, that's pretty well hero crafting. A couple of things to point out. All hero crafting equipment is limited to level 30, i.e. once you're level 30 you can wear anything in the game, nothing goes beyond that. I know that seems to confuse quite a lot of people. It's mostly, the idea is the tiering is broken down by the sort of economic abilities of your character, you know, your ability to get the schematics, the required resources and everything, more than your level. So you don't need to be like level 100 to get some of the best equipment. You can actually get it from level 30, but odds are you won't be nowhere near being able to afford it. Like I am. I'm not. But yes, that's kind of how that works. That seems to confuse quite a few people. Once you're level 30, you can craft anything from hero weapons to hero armor to horse equipment. But anyway, let's now transition over to the unit crafting, and I kind of want to take a little bit of a look at that, about why you would bother crafting unit equipment. So we are now over at the sort of resource crafting area, where we're going to have a little bit of a look at unit crafting, unit equipment crafting, as well as siege engine crafting. So how does this work? So let's first have a little look at the unit tech tree and why you might want to craft, because some of the early units, particularly early on, you can either get their equipment from quests, or it's actually just pretty cheap. Say, look at this sword militia. I don't have any of the 32 sword militias kit, If I just wanted to use bronze coins, you know, the cost is 5,000 bronze. It's not really worth the time and effort for me to try and get the resources to craft these 32 pieces of equipment. It's easier for me just to pay the bronze price. So, yeah, for that, early on, it's worth doing. But as you get onto some of the higher tier units, particularly things like these cavalry, which I'm looking hopefully to do a separate video on, so that's why I'm trying to get them built. But and I've managed to get some of the iron equipment already, but if I wanted to use bronze to finish off the rest of that, and that's only, 12 pieces of equipment, you'll see the resupply cost for that is 12,500 bronze. Now it's starting to get expensive. I don't actually have enough to even do that flat out, including my silver. So, yeah, so really I need to be crafting this equipment because it will be significantly cheaper. The other option is you can look for it on the market, which can be a viable option. There is actually some for sale, so it might actually be easier in this case for me to just go and buy it on the market. But I am using silver doing that, and I do actually have some equipment available. So if I wanted to craft this equipment, and as you get into the higher tier eras and you get some of the really high tier units, if you wanted to skip that, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of bronze, so you really need to be getting into the crafting. So I would go over to the unit weaponsmith. I'm in Mariang, he's over here. If you're really struggling to find him, you can come down to some of the things and just click on him. He'll take you straight to him. So I'd go to create unit kit and look for the piece of equipment I'm looking for. In this case, the Iron Cap Scout Kit. And we can see what we need. So we need raw iron, 15, rough fabric, and coarse copper. Currently, I have none of these. That's because I've not refined any of my gathered resources in the open world yet, so I can't produce any of them. And of course, if you wanted to produce, 100 of these, you need 1,500, etc., etc. And you can see it tells you the cost to produce one is 25 silver per piece of unit equipment. So it's quite a bit cheaper than the open market. But to get the resources we need to go over to the refiner, assuming I can remember what we need. So we go to refine sources. Well, rough fabric, raw iron, and coarse copper were the three things we need because these are the three most basic resources. So I have some rough fabric in the coarse cotton variety and a little bit of long cotton as well. Raw iron, do we actually have any of that? We don't have any raw iron, so I can't show you that one. But let's have a look then at the rough fabric. The quality of the cotton, so either coarse cotton or fine cotton, determines how much of it you need to produce one rough fabric. So for example, just with some rough cotton, I need 10 to produce 1 unit of rough fabric. But for example, with my bed, a much better quality long cotton, I only use 7 units to produce 1 rough fabric. And it will cost the same to produce. So for example, I could produce... Sliding scale is too big. Try and type this down. Is that too many? I can do... No, I can't count. 28. So I can craft 28 of these pieces of rough cotton. It's going to cost me 56 silver. So let's set that off crafting. It's going to take us 2 seconds. Get that crafted. And you'll see, loaded onto your wagon, rough fabric 28. So then I'd have to do this for the rest. I don't actually have any raw iron, so I can't show you that bit. You see I have the copper. I can do the same thing here. Bring this up, to a certain amount that I want. Pay 180 silver. Start that crafting. And in 8 seconds, I am going to get 90 coarse copper bars, and I can then use that to craft the hero equipment, the unit equipment that I want, etc., etc. And then once you've got all that, you can then go back over to the unit smith, craft the equipment you want, and then of course you then have enough to build the unit you want for much, much cheaper than if you just use bronze coins. And that basically in principle is how that works. The one exception, just in case you got really stuck with horses, is the fact that you need actually horse units, these Genet, which you cannot produce. They can only be gathered in the open world. They're occasionally for sale on the market. There's a couple for sale down here on the market at 430 a piece. So that's kind of how that works. You've got to keep an eye out for that one because it can be a bit confusing at times. So let's just have a very quick look at artillery and then we'll conclude this video off because it's going to be much longer than I wanted it to be already. So for the artillery, things really aren't very different to any of the other crafting stuff that we've looked at in the earlier parts of the video. Just go over to the artillery craftsman, who you'll always find near the billeting officer and the unit refiner and the unit weaponsmith, always in the same place. And click build artillery, and basically it tells you pretty plainly what the resource requirements are. The hero level requirements, I think the highest is level 20, are all quite low for this stuff. Yeah, the optimal howitzer launcher is level 20, but that's really it. Some of them require a higher fief level to craft. And that's the more limitation more than the hero level. So what's the higher thief level? Well, if we have to go out onto the open world map, and you'll see our capital here, Anliang, is level 4. And it's various territory owned by other various houses around the map. You can see them all here. And you can see the mostly level 1s at the moment. Some of them, the more resources you put in, you can actually start to upgrade these places. A level 4 over there. And once you get them upgraded, you can get them upgraded quite high, and you'll have to get them upgraded to things like level 11 before you can build things like optimal cannons. And the only difference is the amount of damage it does. So 16,640 to 12,11. You know, the actual damage difference is not that great for the crafting requirements. It's just worth noting that when you first get a thief, if you as a house manage to take a thief and it's level 1, you're not going to be able to craft any artillery there. You have to be able to get up to level 4 before you can produce a base cannon. So, just worth bearing in mind. Other than that, the resource requirements work in a really similar way. They're quite high. It may seem almost insurmountably high at first. It's really not once you get into the flow of resource gathering, particularly if you're in a house that owns land. If you're not, it's just a case of really gathering lots of resources to get access to these, or you can just try and buy artillery on the open market. It's either option available to you, or to complete quests to get packs which unlock artillery and stuff like that. But other than that, it works really in exactly the same way. So anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's been vaguely helpful. I know I sort of waffle on a little bit at some points, but hopefully I stuck mostly on topic and it's answered most of your questions. If you have any questions about crafting, if there's anything I've said that's particularly unclear or I didn't explain properly, do put it in the comments down below. I will try and get back to you as quickly as I can, so you can get on and get the crafting. Yeah, subscribe to the channel for lots more Conqueror's Blade content. We're going to be having lots more guides coming in the future. Hopefully give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.